Okay, basically, as I was saying kind of offline, this is the second episode of this webinar series. First session, I gave the first step of show some tips and tricks about ARCHICAD in terms of 2D representation for the projects. I think we'll revisit that topic. We had some very good feedback from existing clients and from other people on the feedback forums. So we'll revisit that topic because I think even though people might be already good users, there's always some little gaps that we can teach with these sessions. So today's session, we'll have a special guest beside me and James hosting the event. There will be Jorge Beneitez, or in Jorge Beneitez. I think we can call him George to make it easy. Fun fact that every 1 out of 2 people on Enzyme is always named George. So I just did this from the first snapshot. It looks like a boys band. Actually, they have more people in the team. Sorry for the guys that I didn't include here. It's just that I have limited space on the slide to present the team. So this is the Jorge we're talking about. There's also the other Jorge, Jorge Gil, or George Gil, and then we have back in Spain, George Morlan as well. So so this ARCHICAD Now webinar series will be about parametric design approach on a specific type of architecture. So George has brought a very interesting project to show how they use parametric design to solve some of the issues, tackle some of the challenges that they had. Next week, James will talk about parametric profile to design at early stages, like conceptual stage, how we can, with very few elements, come out with our design. It's almost like a massing 2.0. And then the week after, I will talk about building up building material library and enrich them with specifications. And then after this webinar series 1, after these 4 episodes finish, we plan to continue with the series 2 and so on. So this way you can see what is coming up on the next few weeks. So I plan next week to launch the second series where we would put the other contents up. So if there's any customer or any user that would like to present something, please contact me. You can email me or even reach us through social media in case you want to present something here. If not, we'll just go around and ask you one by one. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about parametric design approach on a specific type of architecture. And I would now pass the screen to George, so he would be the presenter. And this is not access. So I'll stop sharing. Now I will give access to George so that he could show his screen and present. At the end of the event of his presentation, we can have a short Q&A. And after that, we will I will show our other slides about my presentation. So Jorge, the stage is yours. No, I make you organizer, not presenter, sorry. Okay, do you have everything on your end?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, go ahead.
So thank you, Marcelo. Thank you so much for inviting me here, and thank you all of you guys to spend this afternoon with us, and to let me introduce the work that we're doing. Let me just share. Gonna share this screen here. So As Marcelo was saying, we're going to introduce some of the work. We were trying to be innovative and avoid showing some of the examples that we've shown several times. So the project that I'm going to show now, it's actually an ongoing project that we're working on right now, where we are now going through the construction documentation phase. And even if I cannot really mention a lot of details about the project, I want to tell you that it's a big aquarium project. So it's the degree of complexity is quite large. We have interaction, and we have of interaction of many different consultants. So specialists, aquarium specialists, and then the typical M&E and structural and fire services, local architects, etc. So the project is in Vietnam. So we are at the moment located, separated in different teams, but part of the team is sitting in Singapore. The main team is in the Hong Kong office, and we have some help sometimes from the office in Spain. Our offices are not large, so we have in Hong Kong like around 8 people, in Singapore a couple of people, and in Spain another 2 people and 1 person in Vietnam. And we were discussing, Marcelo and I, before that. I mean, this is not because of the virus. We were working like that before, so for us, all these remote working hasn't been really any issue. So we've been working with different teams remotely for at least 2 or 3 years now. So obviously using Beam Cloud and Zoom and some specific softwares to share and to manage the teams. That if you guys, we can also talk about later. So yeah, everyone knows my name already. And then we just for maybe if there is anyone that don't know about us, we are Enzyme. So we are a BIM architecture design office. As I mentioned, we have several offices, small hubs in different places. We are all architects, so we are mainly designers, but we have been developing this knowledge in and then leveraging this knowledge in digital design and BIM, etc. By converting ourselves into digital consultants, and we try to be technology and BIM advocate because we really believe that this can help the whole process and the industry to move forward. So we use BIM for design. That's our motto in our company. So BIM is it's not an extra service. It's not something we do because we have to. We use BIM for design because it helps us to create better projects and more accurate and faster and etc. etc. So these are just as an introduction, a few of the projects that we've done in the office. You guys can see some larger scale developments. We have some towers there in the left side. That was a project in Kuala Lumpur, a competition, and then small houses as well. Another urban planning, two master plannings, one in Europe and one in China. So you guys can see that we moved in different scales. Also interior design. We were working in some co-working spaces here and some large offices in Hong Kong, residential towers, and another few other projects like hotels and museums. So we try to, we work in very different projects, and the process is always the same. So we use the technology again to try to leverage the technology to help us in each of the different projects in different things. So what we are trying to show you now is in this project, we have been using this parametric design, not for the design of the whole project. The project was mainly designed and developed in ARCHICAD, but because we had 2 roles in the project. One was more the lead architects, so we had the architectural scope, but then we were also hired to do the interior design. So the part that I'm going to show you correspond mainly to the interior design package. So this is a like a slide that I like. At the moment, I think there is a trend for architects to start thinking more in parameters rather than things that maybe discussions that we had before in architecture about style and maybe, I don't know, shape or form. Those are still there, but they're becoming more and more less and less relevant, and we're starting to think more in a more holistic way architecture. I think nowadays bringing data from various different sources, like whether it's urban data or fabrication data or clients' requirements. So we're creating a pool of data, and BIM and digital design help us to sort of like bring together all those parameters. I call them parameters, and then create projects that are responding to those specific parameters and that can vary if there's any variation on the initial brief, right? I want to show you this architectural office or this design office that I really love, and it just summarized for me what this digital design means for our company, which is simplifying the complexity, right? And helping documenting, communicating, and solving the different problems that we have, right? So this is a company called The Very Many. They do mainly this sort of pavilions, so they move more into this type of architecture. But this super complex shape was developed in a way and was thought in a way that at the end can be solved and can be described into linear elements, planar elements that can be fabricated very, very easily. So this is what it means to us use algorithmic design, not always to create super complex shapes, but to solve things in a maybe like a more simplified way or a more parametric way. So here, for example, there is some examples of one of our design projects. This is the lobby of one of the aquariums that we are designing, and you can see how these are screenshots from ARCHICAD, how easy it is to create these forms and these parametric features perhaps in Rhino, but also how easy it is to describe them and document them in ARCHICAD, right? By creating, because at the end what we are trying to communicate is not only these elements, but also the design of the space, and so on. So we really like to at the end, even if the power of the algorithmic design, it's more in the Rhino side, the Rhino Grasshopper, but ARCHICAD is a great tool to sort of like convey all the different geometries and sort of like communicate the architectural.
So sorry to interrupt you. Basically, you have like your design platform. You're working in ARCHICAD, and whenever you have like a shape that is a challenge, you jump into Rhino and Grasshopper to try to break it down, generate it, and then you bring it inside ARCHICAD through the live connection, right?
Yeah. Like 90% of the times that's the workflow. Sometimes we start in Rhino, but it's not many times. And even if the process starts in Rhino, we always sort of like create a base file in ARCHICAD so we can reference to I don't know, so to speak, the location of the project or some sort of like boundary conditions. So in that sense, yeah, ARCHICAD is the platform where everything is going to be coming to, and then exported. We will use the ARCHICAD file and the ARCHICAD model to export every document at the end. I'll show you more examples later. So things that like objectives that why we use this algorithmic design, this parametric design. It's what I said before. It allows us to work in this parameter-driven design. It helps us to optimize. There are some optimization tools in the Grasshopper suite that can help us to use machine algorithms and the intelligence of AI and so to speak to optimize some of our design problems. It helps us to in the form exploration, and what I'm gonna show you today, it will help us as well to think into to move into the fabrication process. So creating the documentation and creating files that will be used for fabrication afterwards. So these are a few views of the aquarium. Yeah, as you can see, it's quite large. So it's around 10,000 square meters, and it has a lot of, you know, like different rooms with different designs and different elements. I will show you some of them at the moment. So, but you can see it's a very challenging project, not only from the interior design perspective because of the complexity perhaps of the design, but also because of the coordination and from the architectural perspective. It's a pretty challenging project as well. So you can see, for example, not sure if you see my mouse, but you can see. You can?
Yes.
Okay, so we have on the bottom left, you know, the shop of the aquarium and the ticketing area, and then on the middle is like the entrance of the space, and then we have all the journey in between, and then you can see here, for example, some of these design features that I will show you in the ceilings, and
you guys also
mainly
didn't keep it simple, right?
what?
Like you didn't do like the many plenty, or how's it called?
Oh, the very many. No.
You didn't keep it simple. You actually, like, every space I see, they have a new setup of ceiling is totally.
It has to be. It has to be. That was coming from you know, at the end, an aquarium is an entertainment center, so people want to go there and be entertained, and some of these features actually, we think they help to kind of like convey the project idea and the current idea. So, but it's true that we have a lot of different areas. So, for example, one of the items that I want to show you, and I want to explain, and please interrupt me anytime if you have any question. We want to do this, you know, like a more interactive session. So one of the conditions that we had, because this aquarium is not a new building, it's inside an existing building. It's in the basement of a mall. So we had a number of columns, the structural columns that will obviously support the rest of the mall, but they might be in the middle of everywhere. So we had to do a number of solutions that will cover and that will sort of like camouflage these columns and integrate them into the design aspect. So this is one of the spaces. It's designed to be like a village with, you know, different tanks with different species, and these columns were designed, or we wanted to design them in this triangulated manner, using like a mirror material to, you know, in the dark environment, the columns will sort of disappear in the space. So that was the intention. So in order to do that, what we moved into Rhino Grasshopper. So what we did here, we didn't use the Grasshopper connection in this moment. What we did is, like, using a marquee, we exported a very small portion of the ARCHICAD model, of the full ARCHICAD model. You can see even like the escalator is there, and we exported that into Rhino, and we use that as a starting point to design the column. So the column is a simple section, pentagonal section that is rotating in, you know, it has like, I think 4 or 5 different sections in different planes, and it's just rotating, and by rotating in the horizontal plane and slightly tilting is creating this triangulation. But what it's doing as well is, by doing that, you know, that simple logic, we were also trying to rationalize a little bit the triangles and the number of panels, etc. So we did all that Grasshopper script, and at the end, by using some Grasshopper tools, where we projected all these flat pieces. So the design of the column is meant to be fabricated in flat metal panels, right? So in the middle of the screen, you can see what it will be the structure. All these pieces will be sort of like put together, creating like a three-dimensional structure. And then on top of that, we will have the mirror panels that are the green panels. By using Grasshopper as well, we could automate the naming of the different pieces and the naming and also the dimensioning. So we created all these documents. So we created this as 2D AutoCAD files, so exported in DWG, and then merged them. And so we merged separately the columns in the ARCHICAD model, so you can see them here in within the space. Obviously, for design coordination, for the creation of elevations and plans, etc. But we wanted also to avoid a lot of this manual work that you know, that it's adding dimensions and adding labels, etc. So we created, you can see here, we created these drawings automatically in Rhino Grasshopper and just reference them into the ARCHICAD layout. So that was,
and do all the columns change? Like all the columns are different, or it's the same idea and just kind of slightly modified? So
yeah, so it's actually, we did a very simple trick, but I want to think that it was very smart. Yeah, so we did one module, but the module is asymmetric. So if you rotate that module in plan, it will always look different from the, you know, from the perspective of the visitors. So we did that, and the only thing that is that we needed to create two different modules because some of the columns were different, were more some of them were square sections, some of them were rectangular section, so we needed to create two different modules. But other than
involved, right?
Yeah, we tried with using the same module, but at the end it was a waste of space because obviously one will just like
too big.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see here from the ARCHICAD model, we input all the, you know, the columns in place, and therefore we were able to do all the sections and elevations. And you can also see, so we send the columns using the live connection, and you know, adding the proper building materials and so on. We also were able to label them afterwards in elevation. So this is a second feature. It's in the same space. In this case, what we were looking for, it was to create a sort of like a ceiling lamp, like a ceiling feature that will represent like a swarm of fireflies in the space, right? So what we did is
Josh, there is two questions on the chat. Do you want to answer that first before you move on to the next feature?
Sure.
RJ is asking, did you use Rhino Grasshopper Live Link? Does it slow down ARCHICAD?
Okay, so yeah, Rhino Grasshopper with these large files, the live link can definitely slow ARCHICAD. So what we did was to, as I explained, first we saved, using a marquee, we saved a portion of the ARCHICAD model, a very small one. I can show you here. So this was like if you can see the screen, it's just like a rectangular marquee, and using that, we created the algorithm in Rhino Grasshopper.
Don't send the whole file back and forth, right? Just working in the areas
small pieces. Yeah. The good thing is that because ARCHICAD and Rhino share the same coordinate system, everything that you save from Rhino, from ARCHICAD to Rhino and vice versa, it will just fall in the right location, like X, Y.
Interesting.
So that will help us to do that. And then what we did is we sent back, once we had the algorithm working and we were happy with the shape of the columns, what we did is using the Rhino, the live link, we saved that into an empty file, actually, because we didn't want to, we were a bit afraid of messing up the teamwork. There was so many people working there, and we didn't want to send any undesired attribute or anything like that, or layers. So just in case, we saved that into a new ARCHICAD model, a new ARCHICAD file, and then from that ARCHICAD file we copy and paste it in the other file. Not really sure if that's the best solution, but it worked for us. And the project is always rushing, so we didn't want to mess up the process. Does it solve the question?
Yeah, I think so. And one more question is, RJ say yes. And one more question is it for digital fabrication or traditional fabrication? It's from Brett.
So, okay, so we wanted our intention is to use a digital fabrication process. So this will be obviously the first step is we needed to create the documentation sets for the tenders, etc. But then our intention is that these will become later on cutting file for either like a laser machine or water jet for the metal plates, so or a CNC machine. So there are like actually different design items that will use different techniques, but we intend to use digital fabrication processes for all of these.
Right. So there's also a follow-up question whether hot-link module works for bringing in content from Rhino Grasshopper to an empty ARCHICAD file, then linking as a hot-link module. Terence was asking about it, so that should work, right? Yeah.
I think that works. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
To make it lighter, more manageable. Yeah. Thanks, Chidam.
Thank you. Yeah. Sorry. Proceed.
No problem. So yeah, this is the second item, and in here what we wanted is to create this swarm of light bulbs. Actually, there are small LEDs, but the intention was to recreate this, like a swarm of insects or fireflies moving around, and they will sort of move around the columns, right? But then in order to be able to produce that and understand the name and so on, what we did is we created this spline in like a 3D curve in Rhino. Okay, you can see, and then what we did is added like random points, sort of like following this spline. But then at the same time, from the very beginning, what we did is we created these modules that will, the square modules that will be kind of like drawing or pixelating the 3D polyline like in the horizontal plane, and all the points that we assign to that spline will have a reference point in the ceiling. So at the end, what this will be, it will be like a metal grid or a light metal grid where we will hang all these points, and each of these points is numbered. You can see here we created as well using Grasshopper. So the process was similar to the other file, the other feature that I show you. So we send the model from Rhino, that piece of model, and we created the feature using Grasshopper and Rhino, and then we send separately using the live connection the 3D model with all the information that we wanted embedded in the elements. And because this for the same purpose, to avoid all this manual placement of IDs and labels and etc., we created all these diagrams in Rhino in 2D and send them and link them to the ARCHICAD worksheets or ARCHICAD details, etc. So you can see that each of these square modules, they're numbered X and Y from 0 to 9, and then you can see how each of these lights will have a name that will contain the panel number. So the panel is what I call like the big red square, and then there will be, for example, panel number 10 X1 Y8, right?
So in order to, it's almost like a grid system, right? They
exactly.
intersect, so they know where to place them.
Exactly. So we will limit the random points that we were creating. We were sort of like snapping into the grid, so they will all be numbered and recognizable. After that, we sent everything to ARCHICAD. So you can see this is one of the layouts from ARCHICAD, where we have the diagram plan with all the set out, and then we have the diagram in 3D of only the feature, and then kind of like all together with a project for coordination purposes. You can see a section of the model there. And then, very important, what we did, and this we did it in ARCHICAD, because each of these cables were columns. We send them as columns, and each of these cables had as the element name, so the ID was the number and the code that we created in Grasshopper. It was sent as the ID of the columns, and then we created two different custom properties in order to embed the X and Y values, right? And then obviously we could schedule the cable length. So we have obviously this is a pretty complex schedule. I don't have the full of it, but it has hundreds, like almost 500 cables. So I'm really not sure how easy is this going to be to do it there on site. But actually we planned to be able to build in modules. So what we thought is, okay, they will build in a factory or offsite, maybe each of these modules separately, and then put them together and assemble them on site.
I think it's quite easy. Say that.
Are the lengths totally random, or
no? Actually, actually, the lengths are in Grasshopper we created within the script. We limited the length. So at the very beginning they were random, but then there is something that you can remap the numbers to a different range. And in this case, I think if you look at the schedule, they're all like round numbers, so 0.5, 0.55.
You rounded them to 1/10 of a meter, right?
Yeah, I think they were rounded to 10 centimeters or 5 centimeters, something like that.
Yeah.
So you can do that in Grasshopper. That really depends on your skills in Grasshopper, or actually your whether you think about it or not. But we did that, and then you can see here another view of the space where everything came together pretty well. Obviously, after creating this, we imported the model, the AV model with all the IFC, with all the lamps and all the equipment, and we had to go like back and forth a couple of times in order to coordinate that. But actually, it was not so bad. And this is a view from the Rhino model, as I explained to you. So we send this portion of the ARCHICAD model to Rhino, and in Rhino you can still use this model, and actually it's very well exported, so it's not so heavy. So even if the ARCHICAD elements are pretty heavy, are pretty detailed, but in Rhino it was okay. Because another of the reasons that why we wanted to send the Rhino model to Rhino was because it was somebody in the office that was good with V-Ray, and we wanted to do like some visualizations using V-Ray, and therefore we needed the Rhino model. So we thought this was the best.
Yeah, and RJ just asked, like, how long does it take to? Oh, his headphones are off. Oh, yeah. Okay. How long does it take to kind of generate some of these scripts? And I guess like it's constantly being refined, so there's never a set amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, for example, the script of these lamps maybe took me like about 2 days to work on the script, and obviously after a few rounds of coordination, we had to go back and refine it. So, but I think like most of the scripts that you're looking at, they were like maybe 2 or 3 days, no more than that. But obviously that was only the iteration number 1. So
The good thing is that you can always reuse them, right? If you want to take those scripts, now you're doing, let's say, a store, right? And you want to put the same lighting system, the same seedling system. I can imagine with this project, you already have a handful of scripts that are very useful for interior design, right?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, there are other scripts that I will show you later that can be reused. They're even more generic. These are maybe very specific to the design item, but some of them are generic, like rationalize curves or creating or adding how to say, adding like IDs to elements. So small portions of the scripts that can be copied and pasted and reused many times.
I think the general question we always get here, and we have again from Jean, is that how long normally does it take to load this kind of connection? And even for so many cables like we have here, every time that you have a new iteration, is there any trick that you advise to make this, you know, not hang, or that you don't take this?
Yeah, I think I've said that before, but one of the first things that I usually do is to block the live link. So use a Boolean toggle and set that Boolean toggle to false in order to not sending the live link to ARCHICAD, because
like
every
you close the door, so only when you decide to open the door, the information will flow. When you want to close it, you can test on the Grasshopper and Rhino side. When you're happy with something, let's see how this works in ARCHICAD. You open the dam and it will go through.
Yeah, that's the number one rule of thumb. The other thing is, I recommend, depending on the number of elements and the size of the project and the complexity, but I generally recommend to send elements one by one. So kind of like activate the nodes one by one. If you want to send, for example, for this case, you have the frames on top. That's like a one node in Grasshopper. You have like the wires.
Right? On or
off? One trigger at a time, because I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I mean, like a software engineer, but I have the impression that this connection has like a bandwidth, and if you put like too many things at the same time, it will sort of collapse ARCHICAD, or it won't be able to go
like
through smoothly. Yeah, it's like traffic. So if you send one by one, it will be much faster than sending all of them at the same time, right? That's the impression that I have. Maybe from the programming point of view, I'm wrong, but that's the experience that I have.
I can assure you that's also my impression. I have no clue if it's right or wrong.
Okay,
it makes sense, at least it makes sense.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean, after everything is in ARCHICAD, obviously you can leverage the power of documentation from ARCHICAD. I wanted to show this because Marcelo showed last week how to build these beautiful plans. So we use that technique in here as well to add this sort of like render feeling to it, creating image fields and using them in the plans as well.
They're really good for communication.
Yeah. This should be part of the
default. Well, we're working on it.
We're working on it. Okay. This is a third feature. I think I'm sort of finishing here, but this is like a plaza in the middle of the space, right? This once you go through the first few spaces, you reach into this F&B space that has it has a lot of complexity because it looks into other like different exhibits, and the shape was very weird. I mean, I will show you now a plan, but our intention here was to create. So this is the plan of the room, right? And it has different height conditions. It has different boundary conditions in terms of where do you want, where you can see through, where is exhibit, etc. So we were trying to find a nice feature that was simple and that could sort of like, you know, fit into this complex space and unifying a little bit the overall aspect. And we couldn't find any direction. You know, we could do maybe like some sort of like horizontal fins, or I don't know. We were trying to find something that will fit more morphologically speaking, you know, in terms of design. And because we couldn't find anything, we thought, okay, maybe let's go organic, and you know how nature organically creates this sort of patterns. So we use the Voronoi pattern that it's being used widely in the last 15 years, but actually I think it sort of worked here. And not only that, but we needed not only to create like this pattern as a flat pattern, but the client wanted to sort of frame the different exhibits. So you know, like these exhibits usually have like big acrylic panels that you can see through, but those acrylic panels had different heights, and especially in this area where the frames are more heavy, in that area, it's the main tank where you can see, you know, all the big sharks and stuff like that. So we wanted really to give more importance to this area. So anyway, also we had a room here in the first floor that was like a VIP room that the client wanted to see through, and so the ceiling system should not block the view from that room. Anyway, you see there are like so many conditions. So at the end we came up with this idea of extruding these elements in a not linear way. So, and we created like a surface in the bottom that will sort of like solve all these conditions, and we projected the pattern into that surface, creating this sort of like 3D pattern. Obviously, we also needed to be quite smart because we had these columns here. I don't know if you can see the columns in the middle. They are like grayed out, but the columns were there, and we needed the pattern to kind of like go around it. Yeah. So anyway, we're still working on this script. Actually, this is only one of the many iterations. We're trying to optimize the script from a fabrication point of view at the moment. So trying to reduce the number of nodes and trying to panelize these elements into a standard sizes of the industry in terms of wood paneling, trying to eliminate like super small segments. So you know, we're kind of like working on it as we move forward. This is how it is now. This 26 that you see here, it's like a little alarm that we have, that, for example, there are still 26 panels that are smaller than half a meter. So we're trying to solve these using different tools. This is still not solved, but anyway, this is the full script of this of this ceiling at the moment. So it starts in the left side with a it starts in the left side with like a few you know, starting elements like the boundary, for example, the boundary of the space, the location of the columns, etc., etc. And then
probably some offset from the boundary, right? Some offset from the boundary.
Exactly. Creating the offset, creating the original points where the Voronoi is going to develop from, then optimizing the points, and then all these orange nodes that you see on the left side, those are orange because they're not working, they're like disabled at the moment, but those create like automatic labeling and dimensioning, and also create I'll show you now what's the result or what we're trying to achieve. This is a view from ARCHICAD. You know, like always, we bring things to ARCHICAD. In this case, these were brought as walls because they were, I mean, it was the most efficient way, and also because we wanted to be able to schedule, you know, the parameters of height, length. So walls will be able to do that, and they're easy. A few other views coordinating the AV and all the elements that are hanging from the ceiling, and a nice view to highlight the design on the right side. And then this is the document that we have to produce. So it's this is a document that we produced prior to this last script that I'm showing you. So in this case, what we we placed the tags with the IDs and all the angular dimensions. In this case, this document is like 1.5 months ago. They were placed manually in ARCHICAD. Well, manually. You can do automatically the labels, but then you have to replace them and adjust them. And all the
we have here the question from Celes saying that, you know, since the components are digitally fabricated, do you still need 2D representation from it or not?
This is a contractual thing. Yeah.
So to fabricate, probably you can, but still, like, to assemble and all of this, and
yeah,
you know, to send it for probably for tender to get all the pricings out and everything. Yeah. I imagine you're like contractually obliged to do something like that. But in theory, it could be done without 2D, right?
Yeah, totally. So this could be, I mean, in the future, hopefully we will start working with models industry wide, but at the moment we still need to produce all the documents contractually, as you said. So we needed to produce a ceiling plan, and actually that's why we had to do this.
Yeah. So I think somebody wanted to ask something or comment. Was it you, Celes?
I'm sorry?
Was it you that
yeah, you raised the question. No, I'm just asking because if most of your contractors have digital fabrication capabilities, then those 2D representation details of your components are not necessary, right?
Yeah, correct.
And the same
but it depends on the fabrication method as well, right? For example, this one, as we're thinking, obviously all the different panels will be fabricated, you know, through digital fabrication processes, because they're all different and etc. So the naming has to be, you know, done parametrically as well. But the assembly of these components, because they're quite large, we imagine that they can only be assembled maybe partially offsite. So they will still need to be some sort of on-site
reference.
Reference, and we will still need to check on site certain conditions. So I mean, we're still not there yet. I think, especially, I don't know whether the digital capacity of the contractors that our client is talking to is not so large. So that's why, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Do you imagine there'll be some physical prototypes, like scaled prototypes, like the columns, for example, or?
Yeah, we're working on that. Yeah, that will happen. We're trying to get some laser CAD.
Fabricated, or?
Yeah,
so
I mean,
parts and then put together.
Yeah, exactly. So we're also working on that. Hopefully, we can show you that in the next
in the next future session.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're trying to do, I just mentioned that this is an old document already, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to create this documentation similarly to what we did with the other features, all automatically from Grasshopper, and just reference the drawing into our ARCHICAD model, and then work with this 2D, because that will save us so much time of placing the dimensions, placing the tags, etc. So we're trying to do that as well. Another beautiful 2D document using Marcelo's technique.
Like you didn't know before I showed that.
Okay, and then we can see a few views from the space. This is the view from the VIP room that I mentioned that needed to be clear. So that's why the ceiling is sort of like growing, you know, from small to big to large in that direction. And then a few other views. I found this super cool. It's completely off topic, but I really like this low poly people that I created. I don't know, I downloaded from a website and I created ARCHICAD objects from them, and now I use them all the time because they really give you know, I hate the ARCHICAD low poly people, and but actually I really like to see the scale, right? It really helped to perceive the scale.
To understand the space.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
One is from Ian Lander and Catherine. I'm sure, like, but the topic question, it's Ian asking, what is the joint detail? So be careful because Ian models everything to the detailed nuts and bolts and all that.
Okay.
You want to ask if they got to that level of detail on the model, right? You can open the mic and talk, Ian.
Yeah, we are curious to know because the angles are all different. So
Yes.
how do you connect all the pieces?
So this is top secret, but we're thinking about, I mean, it's still not modeled yet, but we're thinking about a flexible joint, right? That it will be, I don't know if I can show this.
Like, is it like a hinge that you will fix, and once you have three, they will become rigid, or?
So it will be like a plate, metal plate, right? That it's produced in the factory. And let me show you. I'm just sketching something quickly.
Okay, I think you better model. I've seen your sketches and.
Do you see that one?
Yeah. So basically, those elements will fall in between those gaps, right?
Exactly, and then you will be able to. So we have like a hanger detail, a hanger detail that will grab those panels from below, and this hanger will be like bolted there, and that's why we also need the angles, because we still need to sort of like on site do that. How do you call that? Just like lay them out in the ground or something. So that allows us to create only one detail that works every time.
Yeah. So now Kihua has one more question, George. Kihua, go for it.
Yeah, hi, Jorge.
Hi.
Long time no see.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, just wondering, in this case, did you link the script for the column to the ceiling? What I'm saying now, that means if you, let's say you change the form of the column, the ceiling also change together?
Yeah, that is possible, but we did not do that. And that's why I am hesitant. I mean, I'm really excited about the possibility of like having everything linked together. But at some point that creates super complex scripts that are also very difficult to work with. So what we're trying to do now, or what I'm trying to set up as a rule in the office when we work in these complex scripts, especially things like you mentioned, is we're trying to work with a component, not a component, like a plugin for Grasshopper that is called Elefront. Okay, so this Elefront, I can send you through the chat. You guys can take a look. But this Elefront component, what it does is it does many things, but one of the things that allows you to do is to break down the scripts and the files, the Grasshopper files in smaller files, and then you can reference. How can I explain this? So imagine that you do all the script of the columns, and then at the end you have, for example, the outlines in plan. So you can bake that into Rhino as a physical model, and then you can link that into a new Grasshopper file. But it's not a link that it's dead. If so, for example, somebody else work in the other script and modify that file, that will trigger in the new file. It will kind of like trigger the starting the starting point of the other file. So, for example, somebody's working on the column in one file, somebody's working on the ceiling in another file, and then the starting point of the second script are these outlines, right? So those outlines are parametrically linked to the first file and to the second file. So it's a way of breaking down the scripts, because otherwise if they get too large, they're just like too difficult to work with.
Yeah, that's precisely what I'm asking, because if you link, that definitely results in a more complicated script, and I was wondering if you did do that, whether did you experience clashes? Because what my office experience is that sometimes Grasshopper just crashes and everything just came out,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes crashed. Yes, especially if you're, I'm working with Mac, and the Grasshopper for Mac is not so good. Somebody else in my office.
Sadly, me too.
Huh? You too.
Yeah, sadly we also use Mac. Yeah.
So
okay.
So
thank you.
I'm just waiting for the to Rhino to step up and do one proper Grasshopper for everybody. But if you can check, I just wrote in the chat, if you guys can check this Elephant plugin, it's something that really helps to. It's actually what they call the soft beam for Rhino, because you can also add properties to the Rhino elements, and therefore you can filter. You can create like find and select sets in Rhino that will automatically read. For example, you say I want to link as a starting point the outlines that have this name or that are in this layer. So regardless if you have 1 or 10, or if that changed because of another script, those will be always pulled from Rhino. It's a find and select, but it's parametric, so it's kind of a live connection, right? Difficult to explain without an example, but
well, I think we can invite you more often. So let's let's leave this food for thought.
Okay, so the last few images that I have, there are just other examples of other spaces. For example, in here, this is the gift shop where we have this sort of parametric ceiling, a little bit more simple, but what we did is again working Grasshopper and Rhino, creating these documents automatically from Rhino Grasshopper. And what it is just like a simple curve that it's moving along one piece. So the curve is always the same. It's just sort of like, it has a displacement in every panel. So we always try to work playfully in these things, but always with the head of, okay, how it's gonna be built, etc. You can see here, okay, that's the detail, but actually, the power of this Grasshopper, Rhino Grasshopper, is that whatever you do in one, you can just script it so it does in all of them. So we can create all this documentation automatically all the time, regardless how many of these elements we have. This is another of the spaces, is the entrance. We were designing this whale sculpture that will come out of the ceiling. So, at the end, that was the Rhino model, and once sent to ARCHICAD, the whale in this case is a morph, and then you can see there are other elements like this fabric ceiling or the fins on the wall that were also designed using Grasshopper. But everything at the end is like pushed back into ARCHICAD, so we can, for example, this is an example of documentation done in ARCHICAD. And these are like different views, and obviously you can have 3D documents done out of these. So we always combine the power of both worlds, right? These are like different elevations, and that's it.
I think this is.
I have a question.
Yep.
I have a question regarding the whale.
Yeah.
Yeah, the form of the whale, I guess they follow a spline.
The whale, this is very simple, but what I did is I found online a very detailed whale modeled in 3D Max. Actually, it was a whale with a rigging system, that the one they use for animation, so the whale actually can move.
Okay.
And then I scale the whale to create like the whale and the cub, and and I move them in a way, and then I send that to Rhino. Rhino can read 3ds files, so I send that to Rhino, and then in Rhino I did all the slicing algorithm, and yeah.
It's basically multiple sections throughout the whale. I guess.
No,
Yeah.
What I'm asking is that you didn't do a spline so that you can change the form of the whale, did you?
No. In this case, what I did is I use like that's what I said. What I was lucky enough to find a very nice whale model that could be changed and reshaped using it was not 3D Max, it was Cinema 4D. So
but you can, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can do that, right? Because I'm hoping to see you do that.
Yeah, so basically I think what he's asking is, those animation points that you're saying, I imagine like you move one point and then it will react.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, let me show you.
Because if the curve form follows a spline, then that means when you just adjust the spline, the form of the whale will change, right? Theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically yes. Theoretically yes, but I mean I didn't model the whale, so I'm trying to find. Yeah, so I just went here, and I think it was this model here, but it's just like a rigged one of these models here. So some of these are you see that it has like a skeleton. So you can move it around. I don't have Cinema in my computer, so no, otherwise I will just open the Cinema 4D file. But it's you can just move and change the shape. But I mean, this was very specific of this project. Obviously, I don't have the capability. I'm not good enough to.
One idea for you, Jorge. You know that there's still all this mechanical motor that is you can hang strings that you can vary the height. It's a motorized thing. Then you can make your whale move for your design.
That could be, that could be. That would
let's do that. I hope to see you do that.
Okay.
Yeah, don't put the challenge. You will go for it.
Okay.
Brett is also saying.
Yeah.
So Brett is also
that's
saying.
What I do to my guys in my office. Yeah, I always have crazy ideas for them to try. Okay. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. So
Brett is asking here, or is recommending to use a plugin, right? Called Bowerbird for a parametric split operation. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. I have it here.
Okay. So I see you two would be good friends, and Brett. I'll link you guys up. So awesome. I think since you finished the presentation, I think we would stay here forever. I think we can still open to discussion, but I would probably now continue with my slides because I want to share also some more things with you guys.
Okay. So I pass it.
Yeah, you passed me the screen. How do I take it? I think I can take it because I'm the owner. Make presenter. Okay. So yeah, basically. So again, I knew you wouldn't disappoint us with your amazing presentations.
Thank you.
You always manage to surprise us. We got to ceilings, columns, whales, everything. So basically, again, we reach about 60 plus people. So this last episode is already available on YouTube.
Yeah.
This one will also be available on YouTube after the session is done. We will compile it and then share. So if you want to follow us on social media, I don't know where to put this. Yeah, if you want to follow us in social media, you can just take a snapshot of this 4 QR codes and then follow us on the several social media. We have slightly different content that will be shared across all of them. this year we started heavily because of the COVID situation to rely on this social media platforms to reach out to you guys. So it's always good, you know, between your feed of your personal stuff to go and see some of the tips and tricks that might entice you. And one last thing I would like to ask you is to complete this survey. This really helps us to plan further sessions and see if this is being well received. My gut feeling is that yes, I'm loving the interaction, everybody trying to open this to discussion. The idea is this, to keep this group kind of small. I think about 50, 60 people is very manageable. And so that this could be, you know, a weekly meeting, that we can even have sessions that are totally open where you guys can just throw in questions. So just give us feedback on this survey form so that we can, you know, adapt to what you guys want to do. I'll also look into having more clients presenting. So if any of you wants to raise the hand and be the next one, feel free to do it. And we'll keep planning for further sessions. So if nobody else has further questions, I would end the session and thank you all for it. But before, one last thing is, for our clients, we have already ongoing trainings. So these trainings at the moment are just ran online. So if you want to take a slot, just go to the graphisoft.com.sg, and under the courses, you can sign up for the upcoming trainings. So we have one on early next week, I think Tuesday and Wednesday, and that is for basic training. And then we have advanced modeling and advanced documentation. So bear in mind that even though we're, you know, stuck or locked at home, we can still attend the trainings and take this opportunity to upscale our knowledge. So I think this is it for today. If nobody else has any further questions, I would thank you all for a very interesting session, especially to Jorge, that is always open to share with us. I think on the upcoming series, I'll get either you or someone from your team to keep being involved in this session.
Yeah.
So thank you very much again, everyone. I have here some more notes. I think everybody is thanking you. RJ is asking for the beers. Obviously, they're in the fridge. So yeah, I'll go and pop mine. So guys, thank you very much, and see you all next week. You can use the previous link to register if you haven't registered for this. And looking forward for the next session then. Katie, see you next week.
Me too.
And I'm looking forward for the next session. Thanks again, guys. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Goodbye.